Even though I have the text tutorials for each of these HTML assignments, I think it's important to also do a video tutorial, especially because we don't have class at the moment. So I really want to help you get started with this new technology as we do some web development. So let's start with the basic calculator. I have the text tutorial step-by-step instructions right here, and I'm just going to follow them. Even though I'm the one that created them, I'll just go through it as though I was a student like you. And I showed you in another video how to install Caret in Chrome. And it makes it really nice because now you can edit without having to install Notepad++ or have another text editor or anything like that. Alright, so the first step says start by creating the HTML elements. And it's assumed that we're going to save this as an HTML file. Actually, that's what it says right here. You can just copy the following code into a new document in a text editor like Notepad or Notepad++, and then save it as an HTML file. So let's do that. We copy this, and we go back to our editor, and I'm just going to have them both take up half the screen so I can see. So I'm just going to paste. You can do Control V, and let's save this. Save this as calc.html, and we can open it by saying Control O, Command O if you're on a Mac. There it is. Okay, so as you can see, I've already created the basic HTML elements. We have the title in heading 1 format, which is right here, World's Most Basic Calculator. And then we have an input field with type number, that's right here. So if I tried to enter text values, nothing happens. It only works if I enter number values. And then I have a select input, that's right here. It has these 4 operators. As you can see, each of these is an option, the plus, the minus, the multiply, and the divide symbol. And then I have one more input that's also a number type back here. So it only works when I type numbers into it, like I said before. Alright, so what is the second step? We've got the HTML elements in there. We need to add an element to display the result right after the second number input field. And you'll notice I highlighted all of this. That's because no matter how detailed I made the instructions or thought that I had made them, apparently they're still kind of confusing to some people. So please read these instructions carefully. I'm trying to help you know exactly what to do. So it says paste this right after the second number input field. So where are 2 number input fields? Here's 1, here's 2. So the second one, right after that, we paste this. Boom. Okay. Now, it's not auto-formatting some of this stuff, and that's fine, but if you want to indent some of these things so it looks a little nicer, you can. These are supposed to be indented. This is indented. That looks nicer. Okay. We can save this and refresh the page, and now we have the equals 0. As you can see, all of this fancy stuff just surrounds the value 0 for now. The reason we have this other stuff here is so that we can change that value later when they perform one of these calculations. Alright, now step 3 says give each of the input elements an ID and then give the number inputs a starting value. And of course the highlighted bold text here says don't just add the below code. Don't just add it to this stuff we have here. You want to change your existing code so that it looks like what we see below. So the part here, input ID equals first number, type equals number, value equals 0. This is what this should look like. So it says add the ID for the first one. So copy that, paste, and then add a value. This will be its starting value. And then it wants us to add an ID for the select input. So we just have to paste that in here. and it wants me to add an ID. Second number input field. And by the way, the order of these attributes doesn't matter. If I wanted to paste it in after the type, it would still work. This also needs to have a starting value. So let's paste this in. All right, I save, Control S, and refresh. Now you can see it has a 0 there, a 0 there. That's because of the value. The value attribute was set to 0. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? Step 4. Now add a command to each of the input fields for when any of the values are changed. And it also has an onChange event inside of the select, so whenever you change it to be a minus instead of a plus or a divide sign, it'll also perform the calculation there. So let's add those. OnChange equals, just put it right there, right there, right there. Okay. If we run it, nothing new is going to happen yet. If I change these values, it actually didn't do anything. But it did cause an error, and you'll notice if I go into inspect, I can look at that error. It says, uh-oh, calculate is not defined. And the reason for that is because it's trying to run that script called calculate, which doesn't exist. So we need to add that in inside of a script tag. So that's what step 5 is. Step 5 says add a script tag somewhere near the top of the HTML with the function named calculate. So let's just copy this part here. This is the opening script tag, the closing script tag containing the function named calculate. And it says you can paste it somewhere near the top of the HTML inside of the HTML tag. Let's just add some white space, paste it in there. Perfect. Okay. The script doesn't do anything yet, but if you save it and then refresh, you'll notice there isn't an error anymore. And that's because the script technically exists. See, it's there. It just has no instructions. There's nothing for it to do, so once it does that, it's like, perfect. I did it. I ran the script. It's all done. So we need to add some steps inside there. We need to add some commands. So step 6 says, inside that function, calculate, in between the two curly brackets, we need to paste these 3 lines. And what these are doing, these are just creating references to each of those elements on the HTML so that we can get the input and which operation we want to use. And then right after that, this is all still inside of the curly brackets. Step 7 says to copy and paste this code. So still inside of the brackets, paste. And I will indent this part. Now step 8 says add an addition operation and code to display the result inside of that condition. So you notice the last thing we copied in was a condition. We have the word if, and then it checks the condition if the operator is equal to the plus sign. Obviously that means they want to do addition. So this right here, these 2 lines, are the addition commands. We create a variable called result and assign it to be whatever the first number input is plus the second number input. And then we said document.getElementById, result_display.innerHTML. This is all just code to access the output area so that we can assign it the value that we just calculated. Okay, if you save this and rerun it, let's close the developer console. Let's test this out. Let's try 3. And it looks like it already worked because I changed the value. Let me make this bigger in case you can't see. Because I changed the value to be a 3, it fired the onChange event and therefore ran the script here, calculate. So it took the input that was a 3, added it to the input that was a 0, and set the result to be a 3. We can test other values. We can try 3 plus 4, and it's obviously also works. And it's a 7. Perfect. Okay, so the last step here says complete the same process for subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And then you can add colors, different fonts, centering, whatever other things you might want to do to customize this. I'll do a couple of those things. So adding the other operations is simply just adding another condition for the minus, changing that to be a minus sign. It's really that simple. If you didn't want me to help you with this, hopefully you've already done it yourself. And the last one, divide. Ta-da! Let's test it. So if I have a 5 plus 4, and I do change it to be a multiply, now it's 5 times 4, it still works perfect. 5 minus 4 works, alright. What about 5 minus 1 is 4, 5 divided by 1 is 5, perfect. If you want to make it more immediate, so it performs the calculation right as you're typing it, let's change it. So instead of being the onChange event, let's make it the Onkeyup event. So this just says as soon as you've typed anything, it'll try to run that script. So I save that, refresh, and now if I type a 5, you'll notice it already calculated it. If I type a 4, it already calculated it. Yeah, it's beautiful. All right, so that last part said you can add some. We can add some CSS, different colors, different fonts, whatever else you want to do to it. I'm just going to center it and maybe change the background color. Let's do that. So I'm going to add a style tag, and I can add some CSS for the body, which is basically the whole page. So let's say background color yellow. Save that, refresh. Good, it works. We can also say text align center. Save, and it works, except that it doesn't work. So I figured out why it did not center it. It's because I'm actually zoomed in here. So it is centered. We're good. It's just because I zoomed in here and I was scrolled around. But anyway, so yeah, we centered it. We made it have background color yellow. Let's call that good. So once you've got that, feel free to turn it in. You can just submit this HTML file we created.